we don't think that we must go beyond that point before we have a new treaty, we have maybe an amendment of the Kyoto Protocol, including emerging economies or some other consideration. We think that if we want to work with the private sector, we are just now doing it. And let me say that this company is very important for Mexico because they are recycling glass in Mexico, 250,000 tons per year, as I remember. So they are doing a very good job in the ecological path of sustainability, but at the same point, we cannot give the burden of sharing these objectives with the private sector unless the things change in the Kyoto Protocol. So developed countries must give the results that we are looking for, and we as a developing countries must continue doing a voluntary targets or working as Jose is doing, as Vitro is doing, and many other private sector is doing now.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Next question, please. This lady in the back here.
Gracias. Mi nombre es Patricia Romero, soy de la Fundación A Cada Uno y es una pregunta dirigida al señor secretario. Dentro de los programas que tienen ustedes actualmente trabajando, ¿se ha diseñado algunas estrategias de responsabilidad social dirigidas a la participación de la iniciativa privada? Gracias.
Is the translator
Just tell me if I am good
available?
Interpreter or not. I can continue. So, yes, well, the question that Patricia is doing is that if we are inviting or working with the private sector in the social responsibility initiative. We are doing that in the sustainable area, and we are talking about the environmental leadership, which is the kind of goals that we are looking with very specific targets on water saving, packing material saving or recycling, reduction of emissions, and reduction of use of energy, any kind of energy. And so we are working on a voluntary basis, and we were going to have a target maybe half of what we are having now at the end of this year. And we are now increasing even to the universities because many spaces want to continue working in this. I must say that we are working with 60 different hotels in Cancun. So every hotel that you will attend, you will find which kind of emissions are they reducing, water saving and things like this. So we can expand this not only in the industry area, but many other areas, and they are doing, I think, they are doing fine. What I cannot say now is that we could have some kind of incentive from the Treasury. I'm not sure about that, you know how difficult it is, this issue, but what we can say very clearly is the amount of millions of dollars that we are saving in 3 years, $90 million, and we want to reach $900 million US by the end of 2012 on savings in every one of the industries that are participating in this program.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. And I think your translation services will not be needed anymore because we have our translator back. Can I have the next question, please? Sorry, in the back there.
Thank you. I want to try to speak in English without translation in Spanish. Good morning. I am Mauricio Rivero. I am the Vice President of the International Union of Architects, which leads 1,300,000 architects around the world. And I'm Mexican. And I'm worried because in Mexico, the role of the urban design and the planification of the territory was abandoned about 20 years ago when they disappeared one of the ministries in charge of that issue. This conference addresses to the business point of view and how to reduce the contamination. But I think we should address more to the causes of that contamination. the mistakes is done into the planning of the cities and into the time, by example, that people use to go from home to work, that right now in Mexico City is about 2 or 3 hours daily, and people spend around 35% of their income just in traveling expenses. I think this conference, and I think COP16, we will have a meeting in COP16, and we will have there about 300 students working on this issue and architects around the world, trying to call the attention of the governments and the United Nations about the necessity of think of what we are planning or proposing, that it's needed to do something like sustainability by design. So be prepared before the problems come out. If there were not such big distances between work and home, we will not be spending so much gas and other incomes and other issues about it. So that's a question general to everybody, but especially to the minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think I'm actually going to direct that one at Pooran. Clearly, cities are a huge issue. I saw statistics. China is going to build an entire America worth of cities over the next couple of decades. And how do we do this in a more sustainable way?
Well, I think planning and urban planning, of course, is going to be absolutely essential with that. With now majority of people now living in urban areas, and that's absolutely right. The person asking the question there, has put his finger on the issue about needing to plan for more sustainable lifestyles, and a key part of that in all cities is going to be transport. And having good public transport systems, and they're very good examples from South America. Curitiba is always held up as one very good example of that. And I think it's also about we seem to have ended up planning for cars rather than for people, and I think that's got to change. And my own background is from a health background, and in fact I see now planners and developers as a new front line in healthcare, because a lot of the problems of affluence are to do with diet and lifestyle particularly how much we've become dependent on the car and how little we walk and cycle. So actually low carbon communities are also healthier communities. And there's another aspect in terms of, a future with uncertain petrol prices. Who knows where they're going to go. But the evidence showed, for example, in the States, that the most vulnerable communities were those in sprawling suburbs where they had to carry on driving their cars to get to work, which meant they couldn't keep up their repayments on their homes. So actually, if we're really going to take one of these issues on, we should be planning for people and planning for a future-proofed set of cities and set of lifestyles.
Thank you. If I could take the next, and if I could ask everyone to keep these to short questions, please, so we can get in as many as possible. To this lady down front, please.
Hello, I'm Christina Gastelum. I'm from the Carbon Disclosure Project, and I just noticed that the green economy often relies on the innovation and the communication of large global branded corporations, but a larger part of their impact is actually upstream in the supply chain and a number of other places. But I'd like to know from your various perspectives, how can we facilitate these new entrants into the green race?
Ram, that sounds like that's got your name on it.
And I presume by new entrants it would be startups and new companies. Let's take, I'm sorry? Yeah.
Or any supplier that isn't aware of those issues.
Right. It's interesting, if you take the consumer goods industry, this LCA was mentioned previously, life cycle analysis. It turns out that the biggest impact of companies such as Procter & Gamble and so on, and this is a well-known example, is really in the downstream and the consumption side. And I think that was a big trigger for many of these industries, not so much just the upstream side of it, but the changes that can take place in the downstream side. And as a result of that kind of analysis, life cycle analysis, products such as Tide cold water were developed, which reduced the energy consumption. So I think that's a great opportunity for, in a sense, disintermediating the people in between, new companies, really looking at the impacts on the usage side. And this has come up before in earlier discussion, that looking at the good that you can do to the world. So, and I think this is a peculiar problem also for IT-intensive industries. Silicon Valley clearly is one. The upstream impacts are very minimal, and therefore the kinds of metrics we have don't really apply to them. So I think the focus on the downstream, on the consumer side, on the usage side, is really the place for Silicon Valley companies, IT companies, consumer packaged goods, and so on to begin to identify opportunities there.
And Jose, I imagine you're working with your suppliers in the full supply chain as well.
I would say that at the company level, you can think global, think big, but you need to start acting local and small to generate solutions. To achieve our carbon footprint reduction, we made an assessment that we could reach it with existing technologies up to 2/3 of the goal. But we would need new technologies to get to the other third. So we are collaborating with a number of companies to develop the solutions require testing, learning, etc. And we are sponsoring them to come up with some of these solutions. I think it has to do with some of the work we do as companies. We can influence our clients. The supermarket chains are very eager to have sustainability programs, and some suppliers too. But probably here I would also address the macro dimension. That is, as a country, I would wonder why Mexico cannot be a leader in the green economy. Why can we harness that opportunity, being next to the largest market in the world and having this momentum being created at the current moment in that direction? I would wonder why not we can decide in which areas of the green technology we can be more effective. And I would suggest that probably the areas of building, the areas of transportation, we are a country that moves a lot of products and people through buses. The railroads are not that extensive here. So transportation, energy, and green cities could be some of the areas, or telecommunications. I think we need to pick 3 or 4 and really create the incentives, the programs to accelerate the pace there. That might be something that we would love to join a discussion, Secretary, in that direction.
Thank you. There was a gentleman who had his hand up before. Yes.
Hello, Daniel Zapata from Equerencia Sustainability Consultancy, and this goes for the Ministry of Environment and for Gamesa. A few months ago, some of my clients were concerned about Mexico's government commitment to greatly reduce its emissions. Some were even pleased because they had made some improvements over the last years, expecting a first mover advantage. However, recent reports have stated that Mexico's plans have severely been hindered by Pemex and CFE. In Pemex, some projects that seek to eliminate 40 million tons of CO2 annually have been severely hindered by internal pressures as well as CFE. And in fact, CFE has repeatedly stated that it will seek to invest $7 billion in the production of energy based in carbon fossil fuels by 2024. So my question is, what do we tell some of the people that are concerned that their efforts will go unnoticed and that the bulk of carbon rights will go to Pemex and CFE? And what could you tell us about the internal power struggles in Pemex and CFE? And what can we expect from the energy sector in the medium to the long term? Thank you.
Yes, Daniel, you have mentioned very important issues on the special program on climate change. You know that we are discussing the budget for the next year, and it's crucial for Mexico to have enough budget in the case of Pemex,